And it's like, it's that thing of like, I feel like I'm saying it, so people listening are definitely going to feel like I say too much. But it's just fun. I'm having fun. And so
That's
it's like, I'm glad people enjoy it, because at this point, this is for me. This is just, I get to talk to people and this is fun and cool.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Perspective Checks, where I sit down with friends and folks from the TTRPG community to talk about all the things about this hobby that get us excited, frustrated, overwhelmingly confused, or just blow our minds because we hadn't thought of things that way before. Today, I'm joined by the delightful Matt Caulder, host of the Whatcha podcast, a wonderful show where he interviews creators and guests about their projects and processes, which I have found so enjoyable. So, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
I can't believe I just missed the opportunity to say, what you doing? Like,
I mean, well, listen, we can fix it in post. See, and then you don't fix it in post. You leave the joke that you're going to fix it in post.
That's right. Yeah. That's 101 stuff right there. Yeah.
I told somebody the other day, I'm like, the height of comedy is being overly confident, loudly and publicly. So then when you screw it up, you can point at it and it's hilarious. Everybody will find it funny.
Absolutely. It's like, clearly they meant to do that because look how confident they are.
Yeah. They just spent 2 minutes talking about how they would never do it, and then they just did it. So obviously this was a joke.
Yeah. All that fear on their face. That's just an act. That's just
on my stream, we call that getting Matt Cauldered. Where I'll say something and then immediately the opposite will happen.
Yeah.
And it happens enough.
Like you said, when you put stuff out in the universe. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining me. We're going to get into a topic, although I love, lately we're going to be a little loose with this one, which is really fun. And, I'm going to talk to you about your show because I think that people, if they're not already listening to it, should go listen to it. But before we do that, I open the episodes, my interviews, with the same 3 questions for all guests, just to kind of get to know you a little bit.
All right. I'm ready.
Yeah. So the first one is, how long have you been playing TTRPGs or been in around the hobby?
So I've been playing TTRPGs. I mean, regularly, I'm not going to count that one time I didn't actually play Dungeons and Dragons with a guy in college. I'm not going to count that time. I did make a character and I showed up. And then what we did was not Dungeons and Dragons in the way that I think a lot of people are quote unquote playing Dungeons and Dragons now, where I was like, guy, I'm really excited about my like Dragonborn Barbarian and how I can do like an action surge. Are we just not? No. Okay.
No,
that's
we're not
fine.
doing that.
Yeah, we're not. We're doing a different thing. Okay. That's fine. I got very lucky. My partner and I used to live in Florida, and to make a long story slightly shorter on this side of it, we moved because I got a new job, and I found a meetup for people that were interested in playing story games, because that was the parlance at the time.
Yeah, that, honestly, much more of a green flag.
Yeah, well, and that was the thing. It was the story games of Tampa Bay group, and it was for people who were and I forget what games they listed, but it was and they met at a Perkins that was right by our house. We were very lucky where we lived at the time. We lived on one side of the University of South Florida campus. I can say this because I don't live in the state anymore, so I'm not worried about doxing myself.
Right. They're going to go to where you used to live.
Yeah, you go to where I used to live. Have a good time. We lived on one side of the University of South Florida campus, and my job was on the other side.
Oh, that's a nice little walk commute.
Yeah, and then the Perkins was kind of in between. So what would happen is my partner would pick me up from work. We'd go home. We'd get kind of cleaned up and go to the Perkins. And every week somebody would just have some sort of game. That's how I played Fiasco for the first time. It's how I played, we played Dungeon World quite a few times, played Monster Heart quite a few times. That's how my partner played Dread. We played, I ran a game of Lady Blackbird once.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we would just be like, here's this cool new game. That's, somebody that I met there. That's how I randomly have a copy of Dogs in the Vineyard. In the year of our Lord 2025.
Wow, yeah, one of the few games taken off the internet.
And it was just, my buddy was getting rid of games from his collection, and he was like, if you want, if we were just at his house, he was like, if anybody wants anything from those games, I'm gonna get rid of them, so take whatever you want. And we had played, he ran a game of dogs where we were sort of like Jedi counselors, internal affairs, which is a very common hack to play Star Wars with that game. And we were like Jedi internal affairs, going around and trying to find.
I had not thought of how well that does actually port, though.
Oh yeah, it's almost 1-to-1 in a way that's scarily good.
Yeah, because for good reasons. I know I've heard Vincent Baker talk about why he took dogs off of all of his websites and all that stuff, because it is like a very religiously charged, like, and like in a way that it's not technically Mormons in the West and all that, but like, but it is very unforgiving in the assumptions that the game makes about like, you are right, like this is how it is, and it's a little aggressive on like the subtext of maybe colonialism or like some kind of like religious kind of like oppressive kind of stuff. So yeah. But yeah, wow, it does work for Jedis. That's really interesting.
Yeah. And that's how I see a lot of people play it when they do play it. And I think it's a very clever hack because it sidesteps a lot of the problematic elements of it and lets you hone in on the similar theme of like might is right and but actually you're wrong 100%. Right.
Yeah, it even reinforces that, right? I mean, like,
in a fun way. But it was fantastic. I'm still friends with those people, and we moved out of state. I got to meet a great number of people, but doing that was how I got involved running Dungeons and Dragons organized play, back 4th edition organized play.
Ooh. And
then I got into doing Pathfinder Society organized play, and I did that for the better part of a decade. And yeah.
Are you okay? Now I have to ask.
No, go ahead.
How do you feel about 4E in retrospect?
Oh, 4E's great. 4E's the best. 4E's incredible, and anybody who says otherwise hasn't actually played 4E.
Yes, that is what I say it all the time. Like, listen, will the combat take forever? Yes. But is it going to do exactly what it says on the box? Yeah. Unlike almost every other edition of D&D. Yes, it will.
The combat will take forever, but that's what you're there for.
Right.
And like, so if you play 4th edition and you dislike it, that's fine. That's a different conversation. But I think like your kind of game. I think 80% of people online who trash 4E haven't actually played 4th edition.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, like, you know, and there's games that people fawn over nowadays that are like 4E, like heavily 4E inspired, like Lancer. People are like, Lancer's so good. And I'm like, you can't like Lancer and then turn around and like dunk on 4E on forums. You know what I mean? Like, you can't do it.
Just at the very least, don't dunk on 4E. Like, just leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
Because you're talking about, you like Lancer, so you like 4E a little bit.
It's better than people imagine, but like, I understand. Reading it, you're like, oof, this is going to be...
Oh, it's dry. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's the thing. I think what's funny is like, I love JRPG video games. I love
I want to talk about this.
strategy RPGs and stuff. So 4E was gorgeous. Like, I loved it. I loved like, okay, like looking at the map, like, okay, so this guy's here and then this guy's here and you can move here. Okay, so if you go here and you push him and then I'll do an AoE blast.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah,
you're playing Final Fantasy Tactics.
Yeah.
You know, it really is.
And if that's the game you want, it's golden. It's perfect. I still regret getting rid of the books that I had.
Yeah. I just had to ask because I think I'm the only 4E pro 4E person in my like DMs After Dark crew. Everyone else is like, no, thank you. We were floating the idea for a while of playing like a D&D edition gauntlet on stream where like we were going to start with like original D&D, make characters, play like a short scenario, and whoever survived gets to play that character in the next edition of D&D, and then everyone makes new characters, and like we would just go through the editions.
That would be cool to see. That'd be a fun idea. I don't know if that would be like exciting, but it's a fun idea.
I agree. And that's kind of where we fell, was just like, one, explaining how we'd have to build these characters differently. Two, you know, nobody plays these old editions of D&D, so it's like the novelty factor. And then everyone was like, but I don't want to run 4E. And I was like, oh, no, me.
You're like, oh, okay, so we'd cycle around.
Yeah. So you just listed a lot of games.
That long answer for your first question. I'm so sorry.
It's all good. We're hanging and chatting. This is what this whole show's about. So what have you been playing lately?
So I'm in a bit of a glut, or a bit of a glut. What's the opposite of a glut?
Dry spell?
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a dry spell. As I mentioned, we don't live in Florida anymore, so we moved. And so we don't have like in-person friends anymore. I have some great online friends. Shouts to TTRPG Academy.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been playing games over there every so often. I'm kind of just at a weird spot right now where like I have a lot of stuff going on and I don't have a lot of like, I don't know how to say this, like
3-hour blocks.
Yeah. Like emotional bandwidth to do that, you know? And it's that fun thing where it's not that the games aren't there. It's that like, I'm not feeling engaged to do them at this time, but I've been very lucky to play some games with some friends. I did Cyber plus Punk, CBR plus PNK not that long ago. That game's amazing.
Is that the Forged in the Dark one, or is that the?
Yeah, that's the Forged in the Dark one. Yeah. Kind of shaved down Forged in the Dark.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, what did I just play? Not that long ago. It's been. I'll go like a month or 2 months between games. It's very, very infrequent for right now, which is a bummer, but it's how it goes.
Well, but you have your podcast where you're talking to a lot of creators, so it's not like you're.
Yeah.
Completely...
And that's the good thing is like talking to people. I'm still, I still follow everything and keep up with everything, and I keep threatening to run Fabula Ultima. Which looks fantastic. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. It's literally right next to me. It's literally right next to me.
It's absolutely like it feels like somebody was like, we want to write a game for you.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that Lancer did. When Lancer came out, it felt like somebody was like, Matt, here's a game for you. This is for you.
Yeah. Actually, so this is a perfect segue. Normally my third question is, what are we talking about today? But we'll get to that in a second. 2 comments. Fabula Ultima feeling like a game that was made for you. Totally get it as a kid who played a lot of JRPGs alone, you know what I mean? Like grinding out 90 hours of a game like Final Fantasies and stuff back in the day. That felt right. But you recently, we met through Star, Characters About Stories, who I did an episode on her show about Fabula Ultima. I made a character for Fabula Ultima for Characters About Stories. So that's a connection, 1. And then 2, you recently, or actually, I'm slowly catching up on your podcast episodes, but you did an episode with George, who made Mappa Mundi, which is coming out very soon, just recently funded. And that was a game that when I had multiple people message me and be like, I don't know if you've seen this game. I was like, bro, I backed it day 1. Because I've never felt a game more spoke to me. I say this all the time. People who listen to my podcast know I'm a wetland biologist. Like, that's my day job. I'm out in the woods, walking through the woods, like following maps, like looking for wetland edges, like looking in vernal pools for like egg masses. You know what I mean? Like this is my job. So like someone was like, what if I made an RPG where you just explore and do like a bestiary and like, it's not violent. It's just like exploring. I was like, stop it. And then he pitched,
how dare you?
And then he pitched it as like, what if Pokemon didn't have battling? And I was like, stop it. Gosh, how much of my money can you take? Like, stop it. No.
Yeah, I loved it. I remember when I came across that game, my first thing was like, hey, this isn't AI, right? This is, were we good?
Please.
I was like, fingers crossed, like, this isn't AI, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, my partner is super excited about that game. We backed it. We're going to get like the adventure pack and the solo rules and stuff like that. We're super duper excited. It looks fantastic. And George was an absolute treat. You split
that episode up into 2, and like the first half I was just like mind blown, like about how he was talking about building his company with his friends. I was like, whoa,
genius. That was one of the, like, I loved how early he was in the show, because it was really like a teaching moment for me, like a learning moment for me of just like, oh wow, like, no, people will talk about whatever
behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah. Like they'll talk about building the process. They'll talk about building the layers. They'll talk about like what works and all of this. And so it's been, it felt right to break that up, to let the focus like kind of shine on each part of it. But also it was just like, oh my God, we've been talking for so long.
But it's great. Like I was saying, you do have a great way of interviewing people, and they kind of feel comfortable and open up and say a lot. But like, I think even in that conversation, and I think something that your podcast really achieves in a really great way, like every time I listen to it, is a rising tide lifts all boats kind of thing, right? I mean, like by just having these conversations with people about what their projects are, what their process is, like how they're doing it, and kind of sharing that information amid the community, because we're in a very niche little circle here of indie RPG folks, but everyone you meet is willing to share their experience and help you like have, a successful experience. Because the more these games make little splashes, here, there, everywhere, the more dents it puts in big Hasbro, which, not to throw stones, but we
can throw little stones.
Exactly.
Listen, they're $1 billion corporation. They can handle a little shit. It's fine.
Yeah. But I mean, I used to run a long D&D program with one of my friends from the DMs After Dark. She is a librarian. She has a program, and she runs D&D through the library. And she had huge signups for D&D. And then I was like, hey, I'm going to run like a monthly one shot of other games. Like, and like not unrecognizable things, right? Like one was like, I'm going to run Avatar. And there was like no one signed up for it because it was just like, that's not D&D. You know what I mean? Like that's not, and it's like, how are you so averse to, you know what I mean? To like exploring these things. But yeah, I love how much information I've just absorbed from your chats with people. So
yeah. And it's been a recurring theme, and it makes me laugh because it comes up every time that I'm not steering the conversation, but it always comes up so much, like the importance of community, the importance of building those bridges and building those connections and sharing that knowledge and coming together in such a way to help people that are doing the same thing you did when you got started. And now you're, 2-3 years down the road. How can you look back and make that 2-3 years easier for the next people? How can you help people avoid those pitfalls? How can you help people avoid those struggles that you've had, so that, not only do they succeed more as an individual, how does everyone else succeed? Because I think such an important part, and I think it's the unspoken part of people like looking back at people getting started and helping them, is the unspoken idea that there are people that are further ahead than they are, that are looking back they're in the same spot. There are people that have been doing it 5, 6, 7 years that are hopefully looking back and giving back.
That's true. Yeah. And I mean, if these beginners just have a smoother road, they're going to do things and they're going to look and say like, this person helped me out. Right. Like it just creates that more like relationship web of more support. I mean, I know there's the joke, right? That like the indie RPG scene is just passing the same $5 around or whatever. but the more we can make these products appealing and like avoid pitfalls, and people are actually able to like make great products without fumbling over themselves. So here, I'm going to just turn it around. Obviously, I would sit here at my podcast talking to you about your podcast because I love your podcast. But Matt, anything you want to talk about? I mean,
I don't consider myself a creative person in that, like, I'm not terribly artistic. Like I can draw a little bit. Like it's not a big deal. It's not a big part of my life. But I view like, streaming and my podcasts and stuff as like kind of my creative outlets, as, it's the thing that like, it's my little project. It's my little thing to work on,
Yeah. Putting yourself out there is just as important though. Right. I mean, like and actually this works really well with what we were talking about, right? It's about the process, right? It's about people seeing how it comes about, how like you're just putting yourself out there saying like, this is what I'm doing. Either you're playing video games and saying like, here's how I've gotten to the point where like I'm comfortable enough just doing this on the internet or whatever, or comfortable enough having a conversation with somebody that it naturally steers itself into a place where we're having important conversations and sharing things that we're learning while we're talking. You know what I mean? Like, oh, wait a second. And speaking of the community, I mean, I've had a few conversations. It's weird that you say that because not only intentionally, but in a couple of my interviews lately, we've been talking a lot about how to just like build a better community, right? Whether that's the designers or whether that's people looking to play, like how can you make a better place? Like I know you and Star in Titterpig Academy, which is an awesome Discord for finding games and people running them. And it's very well curated. I just interviewed a UK based Discord admin who has a Discord for only women and non-binary players because some people don't feel safe or have had terrible experiences with, the stereotypical men of these hobbies. And it's just a safe place to go explore and play games. And I think that obviously we all want to improve the community, right? Like that's a silly thing to even say. But as somebody who's talking to a lot of people who help the community either through sharing information or just making things, do you see any trends in like indie TTRPG discourse that you think are going down the right path? Or do you think we're just spinning our wheels in these small niche groups,
I think there's sometimes where like the machine of social media makes some things where like it starts as a joke and then and then someone's like, ha ha ha, that's very funny. But actually, and then there's like 15 and I'm like, that's great. But also we can just let it be a joke. you know, and I don't ever want to, and I want to clarify my point on that just like immediately before anybody takes anything and misconstrues it, because I've been on the internet more than 5 seconds and I know people do that. I don't mean to like denigrate people like having discussions or be like, no, you shouldn't discuss things, because I think discussions are great. I also think like there's a lot of time where discourse comes from such a specific example. Yeah. Like one specific story or one specific example that then people examine from 19 different angles and form a discourse around it, where I'm just like, maybe it was,
we've lost context.
Right. We're just like, we're talking about like one specific thing. Like we don't have to analyze it 15 different ways. And I think most of that comes from social media. I think a lot of that is just the ways that people have engaged with social media for, you know, so long. It's been like 15 years, you know, it feels silly to say so long, but you know,
I mean, at the rate that the internet and these things are evolving though, right. I mean, like the people of our generation who grew up, I mean, like I'm going to age myself out a little here, to a lot of people who might be listening to this, but I mean, like I was a late 90s, like dial up, you know what I mean? Like family computer, get off the internet because I need to use the phone kind of internet user. But now, I mean, like the advent of, I mean, I was 2006, going to college, and that was when Facebook launched like a year before that. And you could only get on it if you had a college email address. Right. And I remember halfway through my undergrad being like, oh no, here come the high schoolers. You know what I mean? Like, you didn't even think about like, here come the parents. You know what I mean? Like, and like, but like, think of how like almost like laughably pastoral that feels as far as internet times go. Right. Like I get memories on my Facebook of like, this was you in 2006. And I'm like, oh my God, I was literally just like tweeting and like on Facebook. You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is terrible. Like get this off the internet. But at the same time, we've blown by like any kind of like the changes that have happened from Facebook to Twitter to you know, I don't even know what you're TikTok, you know?
Yeah, like right. Yeah.
I'm an elder millennial. I just let the TikTok thing go. I was like, nope, I can't do this. I look like a middle-aged white guy. You know what I mean? Like, not my place. But so you're right though. I mean, like, and when there's so many places for discourse.
Yeah. And I think like, I always want to check myself before I go like, the problem is kids these days. Because it's like, it's not right. Because everybody.
That's not what I meant either, for the record.
But it's just like, I think it's fine that everybody wants to have like their opinion on a thing, because that's the point of social media, and you're on social media. And the point of that is to share your opinion. I also just think like sometimes we have to take a step back and stop being so overly serious about every single piece of it. We can remember, like, we're talking about how to play games, and like, you know, we're talking about games where predominantly you play a silly little guy, and like, guys. And
keep it silly.
We can talk about how we decide we want to play silly little guys, and whether we feel like they need silly hats or silly shoes, and that's fine. And we can come to our conversations and our agreements and our you know, polite disagreements about it.
Yes,
but we can also at a certain point we just go, you know what? I'm a hats guy, you're a shoes guy.
Yeah. It's like, it's one of those things where like, as long as no one's getting hurt, right? And you're not like actively going out of your way to like make someone's time bad. Like, you know, again, this is a community thing, right? I mean, so actually this kind of like the reason I asked this question, right, is because again, social media is an echo chamber, right? So like a lot of times people are in these places where they throw an idea out there and they're hearing a lot of people agree with it, right? And then we get like the no, you know what I mean? And it might be like, oh, like somebody, you know, some bad and like, don't get me wrong. Like if somebody has a bad take, like you could disagree with them. Like that's fine. That's good. You know what I mean? Like have those discourses. But, I almost feel like I wonder if we're not due for like, do you just ever miss the days of like forums, right? Like as opposed to instant, right? Like,
yes, I do think a lot of this is based around the idea, and this is why I say like the majority of the problem is in just the ways that people interact with social media, in that social media is so fast, right?
It's too fast.
You put a message out there and then 15 people reply to it immediately. And I think you could tell that to someone in almost literally any other point in human history, and they would be aghast at that. Because like, the messaging system used to be so bad in medieval times, they would have to have a guy stand on the street corner and shout it. And that was the only way people would know. And now we're to the point where like I could post a picture of my dinner and 200 people see it. And it's like, that's weird. And I think a healthy relationship with social media partially is understanding the weirdness of that to a degree. Is just like, that's weird. And the ways that you decide that you want to approach that after kind of deciding that.
We were before we started recording, we were talking about how well, actually, after we started recording too, you had your story games crew down in Florida, right? That you would go physically play with them in a space. And you were talking about how you're in your card game era right now, right? And granted, there are online places to play card games, right? But for the most part, you're probably going to want to go to a game store, right? Or like an event where you can sit down with your deck and sit across from somebody and play. I don't know about you. I don't play a lot of in-person RPGs anymore, right? Like, and I think that plenty of people do, but everything being strictly online, right, does kind of,
it's trickier. It requires a different level of engagement than an in-person thing does. And I think a lot of that is, I think partially that you can I'm going to say learn your way out of that. And by that, I mean, like, you can have like focused listening, and you can like you can catch yourself and pay attention, and you can train yourself to be better at things like that. But I also, I think overall playing games online has been a massive boon to a lot of people.
Oh, for sure.
And it's one of those things that's just like, yeah, there are some struggles, and I don't think you were poo-pooing on this whatsoever.
No.
But I think like online, like playing online has been such a treat. Like you mentioned like you stayed off TikTok, and I was kind of the same for a little bit. And then I was like, you know what? Fine. I'll make a TikTok. Why not? And then like 2 weeks later, I posted a TikTok on New Year's Eve that, once it was all said and done, got like 900,000 views, because I just posted a silly little joke TikTok, and it was just the right time. And I remember sitting there being like, this is ridiculous. What is happening? What is my life? This is so weird. Right? And so I've been on TikTok ever since. And that's where I met a huge group of my friends right now. That's where I met some of the people that like spurred me to do the podcast, because, one day I was talking about my idea. I was like, an idea I've always wanted to do is like, I wanted to have a podcast where I interview people and I talk about the stuff that they do. And I say, hey, like, how did you do this? Why did you do this? Whatever. And somebody was just like, well, do it then.
Yeah.
And I was like,
I dare you.
Well, fine, if you're going to be like that. And then and then like 5 minutes later, I was like making the logos and stuff. And that's after years of like me wanting to do it.
Just thinking about it. Yeah.
One person was like, well, then do it then, guy. And I was like, shit, there it is. I did it. Now what? Show you.
For the record, yeah, and I was not poo-pooing online gaming. My old in-person game group, I had players move halfway across the country and then a few states away. So like, we're not playing in person anymore. Like, it used to be a weekly thing. They'd come over. We moved, they moved, like everyone's scattered. And now we play online, and it's great. But there's also, like you said, there's a different kind of attention needed. And like, there's almost different expectations. Like, I used to love rolling out a battle mat, or like being like, I made this piece of terrain, you know what I mean? Like, to like, and it felt a lot more special than being like, I searched for literally 45 minutes looking for one good battle map to put on my VTT. You know what I mean?
Do you know how hard it was to find a kitchen? Holy God. It's
right. That wasn't like over the top with like all these very specific things. It's like, why, But yeah, so that's it. I didn't mean for this episode to devolve into like social media and games, or like the internet and games, but it's almost an inescapable conversation. And
when you're talking about community, especially.
Yeah.
Like we can sit here and talk about like the evils of Discord as a company, but also,
everyone's using it.
Yeah, everyone uses it for communities. It's very easy to, build a community focused space using Discord. You mentioned like, do you miss forums? And like, I do to an extent. I also know somebody that literally like 2 weeks ago started a forum. And I've been in the same way I talked about, like, getting used to playing online. I'm training myself to go there and read, and get back into that mode of engaging with stuff again, because I think it's a very different feeling from when I was in college, I was big on the forum. This is every time I say this, it's the weebiest fucking thing I've ever said in my life. When I was in college, I was really big on the forums for this anime podcast.
Oh, cool.
And that was when, don't say that, don't lie.
No, I think that's
and that was where my WoW guild was based out of. So again, the nerdiest thing.
It's getting, yeah, I mean, you're just getting nerdier. It's great.
Getting worse.
Lean into it.
And so like it was very different to like get up in the morning and like check and reply and post to some things before I went to school, and then come back and be like, what have people been posting?
People say? Yeah.
And you're like reading like 6 or 7 posts as opposed to one tweet, every 4 seconds, just like,
vibrate,
check my phone.
Vibrate,
check my phone. Check my phone. It's a very different experience. And that's, I think the only incorrect way to kind of interact with either of them is to think that they're wholly good or wholly bad.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, and they both have strengths. And I think, being on a forum is a novelty these days, to just be like, oh, look at these people. Oh, look at, and y'all are just here the whole time. Oh, that's okay.
Yep. I remember, and this is going to be a weird parallel, but the forum I was most active was when I was learning to play music, because for my teens and up to my mid-20s, I was like very serious about music. I was in emo bands and all that stuff, but I didn't have people to play music with, so I had this like tablature program where like it was like a MIDI tablature program where you could like just put numbers on like sheets or whatever, like make a bunch of different instruments, and it would just play it back to you. And I was just like, let me just experiment with numbers, and like that was how I did it. And there was a forum with all these people who knew about music, so I would be on there all the time and be like, tell me why this isn't working, and people would be like, here you go, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah,
this is really cool. Yeah, one of them ended up being in like a really big pop punk band, and I just still think it's so funny that like I can go to their shows and like say his like old forum username, and he'll look at me and be like, oh my god, dude, what are we doing here?
Someone the most famous person that I know of that used to be on that forum, one of them was an animator who, I don't remember what show he worked on. It was big in the like 2010s. And like if I could remember what it was,
like an anime, yeah,
he wrote for multiple Star Wars video games.
Wow.
Like modern Star Wars video games.
And it's really funny where like, these communities, and then you never know who's going to like, stick with something to the point where that's really interesting. And then you have, not that like I'd feel comfortable reaching out to this person and be like, hey, but like they were there, and like they are a source of information that you've had, in your life, and you can kind of point to and be like, okay, like, well, what were they doing that could help me in my next endeavors or what have you? I'm going to switch hard on the topics real quick.
Sometimes you gotta go like, all right, here we go.
No. Speaking
a turn.
Of, well, I just talked about music. You just talked about your old anime forum and stuff like that. So these are interests. These are hobbies. You're in your card game era. We jokingly said before we started recording, card games rule. What's with the surprising lack of card-based TTRPGs? And by that, I don't mean there's a lot of tarot or Oracle RPGs, especially in the solo world, which I play a lot of. And there's also a fair amount of like deck of cards games, but I'm almost asking more like, what did you say? TCRPGs?
Yeah. I said at the beginning, I was talking about something else, and I was talking about cards, and we started talking about TTRPGs, and I accidentally said TCRPG, like TCG, TTRPG. And I was like, oh, I've said something. I've spoken an ancient word, I've invoked a name.
In a video game, it would be like, you just started this quest. And it's like, oh, no. Boy.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think there's something there.
Hey, let's bring it back. 4th edition was the first TCRPG.
Oh.
If you remember, I don't remember what fortune cards. They had fortune cards. Do you know what I'm talking about at all?
I vaguely recall the like decks of cards. I remember them being for sale. I don't remember how they worked. So
they had cards that were for like your actions, right?
Yeah.
But then they had these other separate things for fortune that were called fortune cards. The idea is that you would have this was absolutely, let's call a spade a spade. This was absolutely Hasbro trying to find a new revenue stream. Let's be honest. I can say that. You would build a deck of like 15 cards. And they would be you'd be like, oh, I'm a fighter, I'm a cleric, whatever, I'm a human. And that would control the type of cards that you could put in there. And hey, guess what? You bought randomized boosters and you open them up and all of this. But so you would have like a little thing and you could be like, oh, like I have this human card. That means like if I crit, I get an action surge or something like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And those were fun because it's a fun extra randomized element. My favorite use of them was the Drow trio of seasons for the organized play. It wasn't Adventures League. I don't remember what it was called. But you did 3 seasons where you played as Drow. And you went through this like Drow storyline. They focused heavily on like playful treachery because like, hey, listen, you're all playing Drow.
Yeah.
So you're going to be kind of backstabby and shitty, but also we're all friends. So like, let's
not start fights at the table.
And so they started a new series of cards for the Drow stuff that were, I think, really interesting. And one of the ones that sticks in my brain really hard was you could play it when it was like an interrupt in Magic, and you would play it when someone else crit, and then you would basically have like a guaranteed crit that you could play. That I'm like, that's cool. That's fun.
Now these decks, would you actually like draw a hand of them, or like did you have to flip from the top and hope for the best?
You would have like 4 or 5 of them in a hand. So it would be like, I don't remember if it was like
additional.
Yeah. It was all extra rules. But and hey, also again, I know it. Hasbro made the Drow seasons. They could sell the Drow cards. Listen, I get it. You get it.
Right.
Everybody gets
right.
it. But yeah, you would have like 4 or 5 in a hand out of a deck of like 15 or 20 that you put together. And but it was such a neat extra layer to your character. It was such a fun kind of extra thing that I'm still talking about it. It's been however long.
That's kind of interesting, right? Because in my head when I'm thinking like, how would you build a TCRPG? And now we're just kind of turning this into like a thought experiment, right? But I like the idea of that it doesn't replace a traditional resolution mechanic like a dice roll, right? I have an idea for, of all things, a Pokemon trading card game RPG, right? Because I don't know, I know you've been playing the Pokemon card game, but have you ever looked into the world of like Pokemon TTRPGs? Because
I actually have a YouTube video that I've been getting recommended for like the last week. Called literally The World of Pokemon TTRPGs. Yeah,
I know. I saw it recently and I was like, whoa, that's so weird that this is lining up. But because I've had this idea for a while and I've played multiple campaigns of multiple different Pokemon TTRPGs that are out there on the market. And like, granted, I should take that back. They're not on the market because if they were, Nintendo would C&D you so hard.
Nintendo would send a lawyer on a missile to your house.
Right. So you can't make one, right? Technically. But I've played like 3 or 4 of them, right? There's like Pokemon Tabletop United and Pokemon Tabletop Adventures, which came out like from the same forums. Going back to forums, these people were making it and they took 2 different approaches. But Pokemon Tabletop United is like, it's literally someone was like, I mined the data for like how the math works in the video games. And I just ported it to dice. And it's like, oh my God, why did you do that? You know what I mean? Like,
okay, well, we've done that, so we can come up with a better way now.
Yeah. Like when your Pokemon are like level 40, you're literally rolling like 3d12 plus 40 plus attack minus defense. And it's just like, nobody's doing this. Like roll 8d12
that needs to be on a VTT. That's
if you did that,
yeah,
probably really great, right? And think of the maps again. That's a good idea. But I was thinking, and then the other way that like PTA did it was just like very simple, and someone else made like a Monster of the Week hack. This like a UK based podcast made a Monster of the Week hack of Pokemon Pocket Monster of the Week, and they did it like that. It was PBTA, and it worked, but it was 2 rules light to like feel like you were having Pokemon battles, right? Because there's no like strategy, right? So I was like, it was my first idea where I was like, use the cards everyone has. Like I don't know anybody who isn't like, I have a binder somewhere at my parents' house. You know what I mean? Like, go get them.
I got some.
Go get those cards.
I got some over there.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, everyone's got Pokemon cards, right? And you could make like really cool things with that. Where if you make a deck, you have your Pokemon, like your Pokemon belt, put that in a separate deck. Like like pick which Pokemon you're going to send out. But then your deck can be the towns you've been to, the stadiums, the tools that you've collected along the way that you've gotten. Like energy would be like ways to manipulate the environment, right? Like it's ways to do this, and then you just need like a resolution mechanic. So it kind of works. I'm going to look back into these 4E cards.
Yeah, I feel like at some point I'll have to look. I feel like at some point I found a PDF or like a write up about them. Like I don't know if somebody like did a bad scan or someone like wrote them up. I should look.
Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you, if you were to design a TCRPG, what do you want out of it?
Oh, they already made what I want out of a TCRPG, and that's Pathfinder Adventure card game that Paizo produced for 5-6 years. A little bit ago.
Those are role playing games ish, right?
I think they're close enough that for what I want out of a card game, a card based thing, that would be a really solid place to start. Because it provided everything that I want out of a game that's, we talked about 4th edition. It provides everything that I want out of a game like that. It provided clear, concise progression. It provided fun randomization. If you got enough of the extra decks and stuff, you could mix and match them in fun, kind of unexpected combos.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, the customizable kind of the way you could deck build without technically it being a deck building game, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, that's true. A surprising looseness to something Pathfinder related, right? Like, it was.
But yeah, it did a lot of the things that I find enjoyable in card games, enjoyable in a board game setting. I don't think that's going to be the role play experience a lot of people want, and that's fine. But I think it's an incredibly strong base that if someone listening to this podcast wanted to build some sort of trading card based RPG, it'd be a good place to start. The biggest part of it being that it was non-randomized. You knew what you were getting when when I went to the store and bought the wizard deck, I knew what I was getting in the wizard deck. It was the same that everybody else was getting in the wizard deck.
No random boosters.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that can be a difficult sell. You look at why there's so many TCGs and CCGs on the market still. Like,
yeah, I mean,
they make a lot of money.
The thrill of the chase, right? The thrill of the chase, and or you're buying singles because you know what you need.
Yeah.
But actually, that's really interesting because if we think about it more from a TTRPG standpoint, and maybe some people are going to disagree with me on this, but like if you're playing a role-playing game as a player and you're doing an appropriate amount of communication to your GM, like, this is my character, I'm very much, ideally, you're kind of mapping out, like, this is what I want my character to do. Like, you're goal posting, like, things for your character arc, you're goal posting, like, I'd love this kind of weapon, like, or something like that, you know what I mean? Like, it's not randomized in an RPG. Like, it would feel really bad if you were playing a D&D campaign and every stash of loot was like the GM being like, okay, well, you guys defeated this guy who had this massive axe. Let's roll for loot. And someone's like, no, I want that axe. And it's like,
yeah,
no,
he has the axe.
I gotta roll the loot though. And then like somebody rolls it and it's just like, okay, you guys get, this dagger. And everyone's like, you don't have a rogue, man. Like, nobody's gonna use that dagger. You know what I mean? Like, it would feel really bad, and there's a way to, in a TCG, I think I like that, right? Where like, maybe you know what you're getting, but like maybe it's gated by the GM. Like that's a more of an RPG thing than a TCG thing, right? It's just like, if you choose to come beat this deck of challenges over here, like this is like the story of this thing, and in this deck there's these rewards, you just got to beat them, then you get them. That's kind of an interesting way to be like, incentivize.
See, what you're describing is the Pathfinder Adventure card game. So when you're looking at a location, you could look you could say like, oh, look, there's 3 weapon cards in this.
You're right.
Now
you're right.
I'm the fighter. I want to go and grab those weapons. And
I think I played it on my phone for a while, and now like you're
the phone version was good. It was also slightly different and did not get any more content.
Yeah, it really did run out.
in a way, like, I can't lie, there was absolutely more than a few occasions where I was sat somewhere playing the Pathfinder Adventure card game at a table in front, like with people in front of me, and I had my iPad in my hands playing the Pathfinder Adventure card game
while you were
on
playing
the iPad. Yeah, that happened more than once.
Yeah,
like I own that.
Oh, that's great. So
yes, card games rule. Yes.
Card games do rule. And you know what?
Wait, I will take this opportunity. Hang on, let me find it. Let me find it. Because you talked about card-based TTRPG, and I've been seeing on Blue Sky the last couple days. Historic The Road Eternal. I actually had to like stop myself from backing this.
Okay.
I'll just send you I'll send you the link so you can have it if you want it. By PubGob Games. It's a grimdark TTRPG take on cards. It looks like it's made for one shots. The art looks fantastic. It's all card based. Everything about this looks fantastic. It looks like such a good time. I really had to stop myself from from backing this. Yeah, it looks fantastic. I've poked them several times about being on the show. Because this just looks fantastic.
Yeah, so clearly, trends are heading in that direction where I think people are realizing, and this is a wonderful thing too, of when you get people in the community connecting in spaces online to start sharing ideas and stuff like that, that an idea that you may have, you might find out, oh, somebody is working on that. And you're like, oh my God, either it's exactly what I wanted. And if you're a designer, you might be like, oh, shucks. You know what I mean? But you also might be like, okay, but that totally recontextualizes my idea. You know what I mean? Or inspires me to do something a little different than I was expecting because I didn't see somebody else's take on my concept or whatever. But it also very much reveals those gaps, right? That people clearly want to crack those eggs, right? Like, how do you make a TCRPG, right? How do you, I've seen quite a few people talking about living RPGs, right? Where like they put out the base game and like it just continues to evolve over time with input from the people playing it, like, speaking of card games, I think that, and it turned into a tabletop game, Legend of the Five Rings. Obviously there's a lot of problems with that game, especially in its early years and stuff like that. But
listen, if there's one thing white guys love, it's making up
fantasy Asia,
fake Asia.
Dude, there's
one thing white guys can't stop themselves from doing. It's making fake Asia. They love it. Except for when they make future Asia. That's the only other time. Is there's one guy that's just like, well, there's enough fantasy Asia. I'm going to go make future Asia.
That's too funny. I interviewed Ross from Blades of Mayari on my podcast not that long ago. It's a Filipino actual play podcast, and they use pre-colonial Filipino mythology, which I was just
hell yeah.
Yo,
love that.
That's fucking awesome. And at the end of that interview, I was like, please tell me books to buy. And I've bought like a couple of the books from his list of things. And I read a lot of fantasy and sci-fi because, we're nerds here.
Sure.
And but this year I've actually put like a big stop on my fantasy sci-fi reading, and I'm doing real world mythology and folklore from like non-Western European cultures. So it was like when Ross was like, read these books, I was like, heck yeah. So I'm reading like, white guys love making fantasy Asia, but like at least this way I'm going to have like a real context.
Oh yeah.
That isn't like super whitewashed American media version of all these things, right? Because like if and when I ever decide to make a culture in a game, like I want it to be more inspired, more coming from a place of respect and whatnot, right? So that's funny that you say that. But Legend of the Five Rings, when it first started, and I never played the card game, but I remember it being really cool when they would talk about, they'd have these big like tournaments of the card game, and based on the results of the tournaments, like whose deck had what characters, it would actually influence the lore that they were writing for the set and for the games and for all like the major NPCs of the world and the clans, because it's a very clan-based game system and stuff like that. And they'd let it inform the world, which is really cool. And I think that taking something like that, and for some reason, Legend of the Five Rings stopped doing that when they started making TTRPGs. And it's like, I feel like you really let that slip. I feel like people should. So
we're making a game where you can tell your own story about the characters and stuff. Okay, that sounds cool. We're not going to do any of the work about building the world with characters and stuff that we're.
yeah. But it's kind of interesting, especially for like the indie scene, right? Where like you might be a person who puts out a game and gets a few dozen people playing it, right? Like let's be completely honest. Like 100 people playing your game, or like 1,000 backers doesn't even mean those 1,000 people are going to play your game in any reasonable near experience, right? It might be like a lot of these games I have right back here that's been sitting on my shelf, and I'm like, please, friends, play this game with me. And they're like, not this time. I'm like, okay.
Well, that's when the next time they come over, you flick the light on and you're sat at the table and you're like, this is it.
This is the one. No, I know. Believe me.
This is the option.
I have been embracing that so much harder lately, where it's just like, you want to play a game? Yeah, come over. I'm not telling you. Like, we're just. You
want to play a game? Okay, You'll see what it is.
That's what.
We'll have a good time.
Right.
We'll have a good
That's right.
time. But
I could promise you're gonna have a good time. But yeah, so there's a lot of really cool ideas that I think that podcasts like yours, where people are sharing their ideas, their processes, is going to inspire people and get people thinking of new ways to do things, and then making it so approachable, right, is so important. All right, we're closing in on an hour. We're coming up on an hour here, so I'm going to ask a couple intro closing questions before my final 3 closing questions. First, I was told you have some good, fun, hot takes or fun opinions.
Oh God,
you want to share one?
I mean, I feel like I've been doing it the whole time.
Yeah, that's fair.
I feel like I'm never not doing that. But this is the big one, right? This was the one when we were talking about like being on the show at all. This was the thing that I was like, this is the thing. This is the big point I'm going to hit. So not that long ago, you might remember, listeners might remember, there was an article from Polygon that Charlie Hall put out talking about saying like, hey, there's no big D&D releases on the horizon. And so this is a great time for TTRPG designers to be very loud about their works and catch people's eye. And a lot of people got upset about that. And I agree with some of them, and I a little with some of them, not disagree, but like, okay. But what the main idea was there, right? The spirit was there. And a thing that I talked with a friend of mine about, and we kind of came to the consensus of like, part of like the driving idea of my podcast, right, is as a fan of TTRPGs, not a TTRPG creator, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not a person that creates TTRPGs. I'm a fan. I'm a player. I'm a consumer of TTRPGs. Mm-hmm. I believe it is my responsibility to beat the drum and sound the horn and wave the flag for the games and the creators that I enjoy their works, I enjoy their games, that I want to support, that I want people to know about. And that's been a big part of this show, is like seeing cool games, cool people, like having Banana Chan on the podcast was a awesome dream for me, because so like good. I've a thing I said for a very long time was like, there are no bad Banana Chan games. I'm like, there's no such thing as a bad Banana Chan game.
And they're all so innovative, right? Like, and like she really does push the limits of like what her ideas, and it's they're always something new and really fresh and cool. So yeah.
But so like I really like my hot take is like, if you're a person who likes TTRPGs and you're like, how do we get more people excited about TTRPGs? How do we get more people playing TTRPGs? And this is the thing I'm guilty of myself. And so this is why I'm the loudest about it. Stop poo-pooing D&D. Just stop talking about it. Stop giving it your focus. Stop giving it your time. Stop giving it your energy, right? And this is it. Like I said, this is the thing I'm guilty of. This is the thing I fall victim to. I fall in the trap all the time, and I try to catch myself, and I try to do it as little as possible.
I'm guilty of it in this interview, So,
well, I think there's a difference between like making a little snide joke and then, being like, the problem with D&D, and doing like a 10 post thing on your socials, right? And that's what I'm talking about. That energy, right? Yeah. That focus, that drive, that fire. Take that energy and talk about all the cool games that are coming out that you're excited about. Like, oh, what's a game on Pocketopia that you back that looks really cool? What's something on BackerKit that looks really cool? What's the new zine that you just picked up that you're really excited about? Go grab a game off your shelf. One of the favorite things that my friends on TikTok will do is they'll get a new game, or they'll take something off their shelf and they'll just talk about it for like 2-3 videos, and they'll just talk about it. Yeah, and that's great. Like, I think that is so important. That does so much more than complaining about Dungeons and Dragons in any way, shape, or form ever will.
Or even contextualizing your point in relation to Dungeons and Dragons. Right.
Like it doesn't need to be a part of the conversation. Yes. You can talk about, even just something and you can talk about things that like maybe a little problematic. Like, hey, you want to talk about Legend of the Five Rings because you like it? Sure. Don't act like it doesn't have those problems, because it does. Right. But if it's a thing that you're like, I grew up playing like, Legend of the Five Rings, 2nd edition, 3rd edition with all my friends, we had a great time. Yeah. It's rough, but hey, these are the things I like about this. Look at this, look at this 90s art. This is great. This is such a cool artifact. Like,
like this mechanic, like, why did this mechanic disappear from the lexicon of RPGs? Right. Like, I mean, like, and then all of a sudden somebody goes, Hold up.
Oh, actually,
4E fortune cards?
That's a cool mechanic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really desperately, and like I said, this is where like the main push for this for my show is giving people, you know, I'm very upfront with people where I'm just like, this is for you to promo your stuff. I'm like, I'm going to ask you about the process and how you decided this over this. I'm like, but like, I view this as essentially marketing for your thing. So please market your thing, market your work, market where people can find your stuff. And you know, if at the worst we get like an hour commercial for all your games, that's fine. I'll take that
commercial. You know, you can have it.
That's
right?
You know, hey, it's an hour commercial for your thing that's on Kickstarter. Great.
Yeah. And like you said, you're having fun. That's the point, right? I mean, like, it's not like you sat through that going, oh God, you should bitch yourself for an hour.
Oh, they're talking about the game again. Jeez.
I asked you to come on and talk about, right? But no, you know what? That's a good point too. And that article, for the good it was trying to do, right? Great idea, great points. But also even just putting it in the arena of like, well, these tiny things in the arena that is D&D, like, you know what I mean? As much as every designer wants to shout from their little soapbox and their little hill, this game I made is really awesome. Please play my awesome game. It's coming from the designer. And do you know how much more weight it carries when somebody goes, I bought this game from this person and this freaking rules. Not only is the designer going, thank you so much. Oh my gosh. But other people are like, okay, well, it's not just the guy trying to get me to buy it. You know what I mean? For $10 or $5, which is even,
right.
Which is even still like hysterical.
I think a lot of people just turn off when they feel and again, in the age of social media and all of this, we're being sold to all the time. We're always getting ads. We're always getting something pushed in our face for us to buy.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people just kind of subconsciously, right? I don't think they do it intentionally. They just tune out when they feel like they're being sold to. They tune out when they feel like it's an ad, you know, or they scroll past it, even for something that they might like. They're like, you know, and it doesn't catch their brain in the same way. But if it's you as a person that's just like, oh my God, I got this cool new game last weekend. You know, here it is. We played it with my friends here, you know, just talking about it does so much. And I think it's so important now. And this is, hey, it's this is the secondary hot take. This is the hot take hidden inside the hot take. This is the deeper hot takes. This is the coal. Yeah, this is the coal. This is the diamond on the inside of the coal of the hot take. My biggest criticisms with creators online is this exact thing. My biggest criticism with like Dimension 20 is that for all of their like pro like anti-capitalist, pro-socialism, you know, ACAB, you know, laws are the structure of the rich to inflict the poor, whatever stuff, they play Dungeons and Dragons more than
yes, thank you so much.
And you cannot disagree with me because this is a fact. This is like I had like 3-4 TikToks that I did about this. I'm like there is a point where you can say that you don't find that a problem, but you cannot argue with the fact that it's what they're doing.
The Abria season with the fairies and the courts and whatever.
I haven't. Okay, yeah. Court of Fae and Flowers. Yeah.
Okay, so listen, I love Abria as a GM. Like every time I watch her, I'm like, wow, crushes it, absolutely incredible at like improvising and just going wild and whatever, rolling with everything. I know for a fact she has been on an actual play of Good Society, a Jane Austen role-playing game. There's Court of Blades by a couple of Drakes, which is literally about playing a house vying for control in like a court of people. You know what I mean? Like you kit bash, you homebrewed 5e. Like,
I think
series didn't need combat.
Abria did. It was Good Society plus 5th edition, and
they did.
All 4 times that they used 5th edition rules, it was great. And I think there's a lot of conversations to be had around how does a game look fun in actual play? What are the needs out of a TTRPG for the Dimension 20 style of actual play, right?
Right.
And so I think I think these discussions fall into any number of pit holes, but I like at the end of the day, the smaller creators, right? The Dimension 20, I'm not even going to mention the other one.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about them. My favorite actual play podcast, I'll take this opportunity to plug because I do it every opportunity I can. Friends of the Table, they've been doing it 10 years. Yeah. If you're not listening, you should. They have played all kinds of indie games. I've been exposed to so many indie games because of them. It's people have written TTRPGs because of their show.
Yes.
And I want smaller creators, smaller TTRPG creators to stop falling back on the excuse of we have to play D&D or or else people aren't going to watch it, and realize that by playing D&D, all you're doing is making yourself one in a million massive pond. You're one tiny marble in a million pile of marbles where you could be, still a little marble. You're still going to be a small show, but you can be in a much more specific niche, a much more targeted audience. Because people who don't like Dungeons and Dragons don't watch Dungeons and Dragons shows. Mm-hmm. And if by being slightly different, you can get a couple more viewers, if that's what you're worried about, that's, if you're telling me the excuse for doing Dungeons and Dragons is else people won't watch, I got news for you.
Yeah. That's a very good point. I was just going to say, or just play another game because it fits your game better. But like you were saying, if it's because you want to stream and you want to have people coming into your stream and you think D&D is the way to do it, like you said, there's hundreds of people watching other D&D streams.
Yeah. Your brand new show could play literally anything.
Yeah.
It's not going to help you.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, the amount, I say it every time on the podcast, it still holds true. I'm still surprised. The amount of people that are so thankful, they're so excited to be on the show, they're so amazed to sit down and talk and stuff. If you played someone's small little game, they would love it. They'd be so happy. Do you know what's never going to happen if you play D&D? John Hasbro is never going to come to your stream.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, John Hasbro's never going to be like, oh my God, I can't believe you're playing Dungeons & Dragons. Do you know who might, if you play The Quiet Year, Avery Alder might show up in your stream.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an impossibility.
Right.
I know for a fact that Vincent Baker has a Twitch account and is on Twitch.
Yeah.
It could happen.
Especially too, like you said, if you're going so far as to be like, I just got this new game, I'm so excited about it. Let me tell you about it and get people excited about it in a post. Maybe a few people see that. Then you post another time and you go you know what? I like this game so much. Not only have I played it and gotten used to it, I want to put it out there and I'm going to play it on the internet. And you could watch me do it with my friends and you can learn how to play it as we're doing it and fumble through it. And it might be funny and it might be emotional. It might be whatever this game is trying to achieve, right? Come and watch us play it. The creators of those games, in sufficiently small circles in these indie spheres are going to see that, or someone's going to tell them about it. And they're going to be like, yeah, this person's hyping you up. And they might be playing your game. Even in our little, My DMs After Dark crew, we're very small streamers. We're playing a lot of silly one-page games and all this stuff. And now they're doing a RuneQuest thing. And Chaosium is one of the companies or whatever, but they've been running this RuneQuest campaign for a while. And people drop in that we're like, oh my gosh, how did you even find us? And they're like, because you're playing a smaller game. You know what I mean? A smaller
because we search words.
It's not hard to, you know what I mean? Find the small community playing whatever,
And so hot take boiled down, because I said a lot of words. Fans need to be a louder part of the community overall. And I really just want people to channel their energy, their fire, their attention into uplifting creators and building them up and talking them up and go out, buy an itch bundle, read through the games, see what's in there.
Speaking of Trans Rights for Ohio itch bundle just went live the other day. I put a game in there. I'm not a great game designer, but I made a hack and it's in there and you can get it. I'm along with I think it's 460 games.
It's so much
for a minimum
ridiculous.
Purchase of $5, and there are some bangers in there. Just go. And
and
because
sure, you're gonna find because they always put their money where their mouth is. If you fill out the form in the description, Paizo will send you a PDF of their new Lost Seas NPC guide.
Oh, cool. I didn't even know that. That's awesome. Even more value. That's awesome. So yeah, I love that. And your podcast is really just putting your money where your mouth is, right? Is that what it is? Putting your money where your mouth? I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
putting your money where your mouth is. I don't know what it means, but that's what the saying is.
I fumbled through that so hard that I was like, I don't think I even just spoke English. But be louder, right? Talk about the things that excite you, and promote them. Don't be ashamed to be like, hey, because again, you're not telling people, go play this game that you need 3 $50 books to play. You're telling somebody, you can go play this incredible game I just found, and like it might be $40, but like, you know what I mean? Like it's one book that you're going to get a lot of mileage out of. Or a lot of them are cheaper. Get the PDF for 10, 15, $20. You know what I mean? I love that. Be louder. That might be I might just make that the podcast title.
Now that plays into the fact that everyone in my life always says I'm too loud. So
no nonsense.
Don't you dare. No, I am, and that's fine. But
my wife says it to me all the time. My mom is one of 9. My dad is one of 6. And so family get-togethers were basically just get as loud as you possibly can to be heard at all.
See, that must be it, because my mom's the youngest of 8. See, that must be it.
Yeah, you had to be loud.
Yeah, I think we're onto something here.
Yeah. All right, so let's transition to our closing questions here. And I always end interviews with the same 3 questions, and I think they're pretty fun. I really love this first one that I ask everybody. So, Matt, I know we've talked a lot. We've had a lot of fun takes. We've had a lot of interesting dialogue here, but do you have any last bits of wisdom, advice, or homework for the listeners?
Oh, go listen to Friends of the Table. If you ask me where to start, my answer will always be episode 1, because that's who I am. That's the answer I give everybody when they say, how do you start anything? I say episode 1. I will say they just started a new season in Fabula Ultima.
Oh,
where it's called Perpetua. They're doing they're doing a new setting. Friends of the Table has some settings that have kind of gone between campaigns. This is a new setting. This is completely fresh. They're building a world that's based off of, they're describing it as Dreamcast JRPG vibes.
Love it.
Which, just perfect. They've been doing streams on their Twitch stream where they're showing one of the members of the cast who didn't have a Dreamcast and has no experience with it some of their favorite Dreamcast games. The first one was Evolution: The World of the Sacred Disc, which is one of my favorite Dreamcast RPGs. And then the second one was Shenmue.
Shenmue is great.
Right. So I've been completely on board. You can listen to the first arc of them do Austin's game of Realis.
Yeah, that game sounds really cool. Speaking of mechanics, right? Like its sentences are mechanics, right? Like it's so cool.
I've really been enjoying the AP. I sat down. Actually, remember how I couldn't remember any of the games that I played? I actually played in a short game of Realis with some friends, which was very fun. So yeah, homework, go listen to Friends of the Table, because if you're actually going to listen to this, go listen to Friends of the Table. Go listen to the new season.
Hundreds of episodes to catch up on.
They have
many hours.
I think Perpetua's like their 8th campaign.
Yeah.
Something like that. You can start wherever. Like, look at the campaigns on the wiki and dive into the one that seems the most interesting to you.
Yeah, the first few were what, Dungeon World or like PBTA, right?
Yeah, so the first one was Dungeon World. The Hyron season, they always played Dungeon World.
Yep.
For consistency. They have mech seasons if you like mechs. If you're Mexico like me, there's any number of mech games. You can go and find the first season of their Bluff City campaign, which was originally Patreon exclusive. They released it for free for people to listen to during COVID lockdown. So you can go find that. They've been doing Twitch listen parties of old seasons. If you want to go get together and listen to people, re-listen to it with people. It's just a wonderful community. Like I've been on their Patreon since its inception. I've been listening to their show since like episode 4. I'm a big fan, if you couldn't tell.
Absolute staple for sure in the podcast world. Austin is an incredible GM and also game designer. Like
Austin, I think is a voice that I don't want to say people don't give enough credit to, because I think people do, but I think people outside of that immediate sphere don't realize how much his voice like carries and how many people like respect his voice and his critique.
I'd agree with that. I almost feel like Austin is like your favorite GM's favorite GM, or like your favorite game designer's game designer, right? Like he's like that he's like the, coming from the musician background that I have, right? It's like those bands that every musician is like, this band rips, and like no one knows about them, but they are like so insane.
Yeah. It's those YouTube videos where they're like the band that inspired Nirvana and Aerosmith and you're like, how could one band do that? And that's what it is. They put out 2 CDs and no one ever heard of them, but they've launched
really
1,000 chips.
That's a very apt comparison for Austin. Although still early, I hope he gets the bigger stage that he deserved.
He absolutely, not to discount him at all. He has time for it. I think now that he has a game out, I think that's helping a lot. God, I hope he doesn't hear this and think that I think he's bad. Oh Jesus! Oh God!
No.
Oh God!
Oh God!
I don't think. Oh God! Oh God! Internet stress. Oh God!
I highly doubt after your pitching of all this that's how he would interpret anything you just said. I hope that he would understand we are big fans. Second question we're closing out with is: are there any ideas that you are itching to get to the table? I know you said you've been in a little bit of a drought as far as like playing games. So are there any things that you're like, next time I play, I really want to do X, either as a player or, just an idea that you have?
I do have an idea that I've been toying with for the last 2 years at this point.
Oh man.
I have this idea of doing, I have 2 ideas. I'll share both of them. They're both very simple, but very silly. One is what I call my D&D boutique game, which is a collection of indie TTRPGs that are you play them in such an order as to emulate a D&D campaign, but you never actually play D&D.
Wonderful.
And I have a couple games, like Skeletons is on there.
Mm-hmm.
Stewpot is on there. They're it's more about finding the games and the vibe and then finding the order and stuff like that. And so that's an idea I've been kicking around a little bit. It's a silly idea, but that's
a fun campaign though. No, I love that, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, I always tell people, again, it's almost this inevitable. My channel I'm never going to play D&D on this channel. I try not to talk so much about D&D. I try and give advice for people to run RPGs that geared more towards play other games. But if you are somebody running D&D, like, do better by using this. Mm-hmm. And like, I always say, do a whole session zooming in on something silly. Like do a whole session
where you don't engage
with somebody. Yeah, right. Like, and something like Stewpot is so good for that, right? Like, and like these little episodes where you just play a different game that fits within your setting, but you can totally trick your players. You can totally trick your players and be like, yeah, totally still our D&D campaign, but
we're gonna
tonight we're doing this other thing, and it still feels consistent enough that you're not going to complain. That's a good one. What's your other idea?
So that's one. The second is my Cyberpunk City idea, which is I want to have basically a living city. Just like weird, kind of, Night City style thing where maybe not every time I play it in that, like every time I played it's a different game, but we play different cyberpunk themed games in it. And the players affect and build and destroy and grow the world. And it depends on what sort of game we're playing. Like if we play something like Shadowrun or Cyberpunk or Cyberpunk, it's going to be a different game than what I just saw a TTRPG where you play as like the medics on like a dock wagon, which if you don't know Shadowrun, dock wagon is the like corporate insurance policy that you can take out, like super privatized medical insurance. You play as medics on a dock wagon thing, which is again, a completely different game, but it all takes place in kind of this one growing city.
Yeah. And like based on how well your medics on a dock wagon do their job, it might mean the difference between an NPC you thought you eliminated being gone or not.
Yeah,
for your next time you go down to street level.
And that's the idea is, okay, these guys just had this game where they killed this guy, and maybe it makes sense that that's who does this. And actually, he got saved by the dockwagon crew because they did too well. So then when we come back,
and what's great about Cyberpunk is Cyberpunk is almost like where you can hand wave and say magic in fantasy. You can hand wave and say like technology in
he's
Cyberpunk.
A robot now.
Exactly. Right. That's fun. I love that. And I kind of like that too. I mean, like Cyberpunk is, if you break it down, right, and you have like tiers, right? So like your street level thugs and your rocker boys and all this stuff, right? And then you have your mid-level, you know what I mean? Like management of certain things that they're messing with. Like if you could find a game that's just like deal with the crisis that is unfolding on the streets that's affecting your business or whatever, Interesting. Very cool.
Yeah,
Love
it's
that.
it's a weird idea. I'm stuck right now on trying to figure out a map, and I think I need to get rid of the idea of. I wanted to have like an actual map, where like you were drawing where buildings were, so stuff was static. And I think I need to partially abandon that and figure out something that's a little more flexible, because I think I'm spending too much time developing a map, and I'm letting myself get hung up on a thing when really I should just figure it out and move past it.
Yeah. Draw maps, leave blanks, right? PBTA. That's actually, I will cut this, but I had an idea. I texted to my friend the other day and I was like, what if Cyberpunk, but like middle America, like pop country cornfields cyberpunk.
What is Shadowrun in Ohio look like, or Oklahoma look like?
Right, like trucks and beers, and you know what I mean, like, but then like in the middle of these enormous nothing monoculture fields of agriculture that feed the whole cyberpunk country, there are these enormous arcologies, right? Like just these towers that go up into the clouds of like where everyone lives, and then every day they spill out and work the fields underneath like drones that are threatening to kill them. And then instead of having like nightclub night city EDM music, like they go to like yeehaws, you know what I mean? I was like
they go to cyber country bars.
They go to the honky tonk, but it's written in leet speak.
I hate that. That's so good. I hate that.
This was an idea that like half asleep me like popped up and like texted my friend, and he was like, "Go to bed, dude." You
should be sleeping.
Yeah.
That's funny though. I'd play that. That's funny.
Like, I don't know how you could really do it, but yeah. Anyway, so So, all right. Our last question is not so much of a question, but just exactly what we were talking about this whole time. Matt, sell yourself and tell people where they can find you out there in internet land.
Oh, it's the thing I'm the worst at. You can find me. Twitch.tv/Matt Caulder is the place I am the most. I stream every weekday morning, EST, 8 a.m. for, good 4 or 5 hours every day. As I say on stream, the on-stream spiel all the time is I play a mix of different games, indie games, retro games, horror games, JRPGs, and stuff decided by the community. We just finished playing Final Fantasy 13. We're going back and finishing Valkyria Chronicles. That's probably tomorrow. When we're done with that, we're going to finish watching, stay with me now, an FMV horror movie that was released on the Dreamcast download service that Sega ran only in Japan, that was released 1 minute at a time for an entire calendar year.
That's such a cool project.
Oh, it's incredible. And I remember I only saw on Blue Sky that it got translated. They translated the subtitles. And I was like, well, we got to watch this.
Yeah.
And we watched a good bit of it. And
so a minute every day of a year means it's like a 6-hour FMV. Yeah.
It's not an FMV because it's live action, but right. It's on a Dreamcast.
Put it into 1 minute takes. Yeah.
It's wild. It's so weird. It is better than you might think, but still, okay.
Now what you should do is you should stream only a minute and then go to another game and then be like, catch next minute tomorrow.
That, if it wasn't not worth the effort to do that, it would be a very funny idea to do. It'd be very funny to like post it on TikTok. That would be funny. Yeah. And then after that, we're playing Harold Halibut, which is an amazing, fully handmade stop motion video game from a dev team in Australia about human space settlers that are trapped under a ocean planet.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. To give you an idea of the breadth of stuff, I play whatever the hell. Yeah. That's on Twitch and YouTube, both at Matt Caulder. And you can find the podcast that we've been talking about at whatchadoin.buzzsprout.com. I don't think I have the URL. I don't know. I don't remember how it works.
I will link the show and your Twitch and your YouTube all in the description of the podcast. Don't worry, we will get people places to find you on the internet, and hopefully they come hang out and see what you're streaming. Yeah. Also, last comment, Final Fantasy 13, underrated, especially in hindsight, I think, compared to some other modern Final Fantasies.
I think it did more interesting things than people give it credit for. I think it stumbled in some places, mostly in them trying to find a way to transition to action games in a way that Americans would find interesting. But I definitely think it got more hate than it deserved.
Yeah.
I think it's better than more people give it credit for.
Okay, wait, I'm going to steal something from your podcast, Matt.
Yeah.
Are you a Final Fantasy big fan?
Yeah.
Okay, well, you always ask people top 3, right? So, Matt, what's your top 3 Final Fantasy?
Okay, my top 3 Final Fantasy games from the ones that I've played, which is, an okay handful. My 3 favorite Final Fantasy games. See, the fun thing is I'm vamping now because I'm figuring out the twist answer.
You got time.
So in no particular order, my favorites, Final Fantasy 9. I'm playing Final Fantasy 9.
Answer. That's the correct answer for the record.
I'm playing Final Fantasy 9 with my friend right now. We're playing the Steam version. It's my first time through. Final Fantasy 9 is famous for me. I owned the Brady Games guide as a kid. I did not
you go on the internet.
I did not own a PlayStation. I did not own a copy of the game. I owned a copy of the guide. I don't know how it happened. But yes, that is the one that famously with the Square Enix's Play Online website where they hid some information. My next one would probably be Final Fantasy Tactics A2, which is the DS. No, that's the sequel to Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. It's a Nintendo DS game. I played War of the Lines. I didn't like War of the Lines as much as I did Tactics Advance, and then I think Tactics Advance 2 is a better game. And then the third one, see, this is the twist answer. Bravely Default. No.
Technically not wrong.
Final Fantasy: My Life as a King for the WiiWare service.
Wow. Yeah, you know what? As somebody who has played most of the Final Fantasies, I think you got me on that one. I think I gotta go look this one up.
And if not that one, Crystal Defenders, the tower defense game for Xbox 360 and mobile phones.
Well, all right. I can't fault either of those last 2 answers because I have no experience with them. But your first 2 answers, objectively correct. All right, Matt, thank you so much for coming on.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
And thank you for listening to another episode of Perspective Checks. I highly recommend going and checking out Matt's podcast, What You Doin'. It is pretty much a perfect finger on the pulse of all kinds of upcoming and exciting RPG products and TTRPG releases and things like that are happening. So if you're into that kind of thing and looking for more games or new games, it's a great place to listen to Matt talk to the creators about their processes and get some behind the scenes. It's really great. You know my thing. Find me on social medias at Rennie Plays Games. Email me at rennieplaysgamespod@gmail.com. Leave a rating and review if you can. I have a coffee if you're obscenely generous. And until next time, you know that project you put down? Let's get back at it. Yes, I should take my own advice.